Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be showing you how to practice helicopter landings. So for the aircraft for this one, we're going to be taking the Robinson 22. The reason I love this aircraft for this particular purpose is it's really hard to fly. And that makes everything else easier to fly. So the trick to landings in a helicopter is all down to the hover and being kind of that spatial awareness that makes it kind of challenging. So what I've done here is on this lovely fall day is I've taken off from this lovely place that's got these big soft fields to practice on. And the reason I've chosen this field, of course, is it just makes it a little bit easier to kind of see what things are. Now let's go ahead and bring ourselves down. I'll start with our descent first. Key thing with the helicopter is remembering the whole problem with translational lift, and of course remembering rotor and ground effect. Those two classes combined are going to make things a little bit more difficult for you to land, and you'll see what I mean the first couple times you try it. So right now the wind is very calm, and we're going to take advantage of that calm wind. Generally when you're first landing, it's much easier to land into a wind than it is kind of otherwise. But what we like to do is we like to find ourselves a big old field like this that's got all sorts of nice softness to it. It also creates some nice little optical illusions, and that's one of the reasons I like it. And of course, we'll go ahead and transition into the wind, and we'll transition into our hover. Now, what was I talking about a moment ago? Translational lift, and I was also mentioning rotor and ground effect, something we have talked about before. I'm going to get the mouse out of the way there. That's better. Let's go ahead and spin ourselves around with the pirouettes. Whee! This helicopter is just fantastic. There we go. Now we're all nice and settled here. So the key thing here is we want to be landing into the wind. So when we have wind, it makes it much simpler for us to control the helicopter. The other thing, of course, when we have wind is it's going to kind of dampen out some of the whoopsies that we tend to make during our approach. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're coming in for a landing approach is to remember that if your rotor is not in ground effect, you're going to be using every bit of power this helicopter has to keep you in the air. Luckily, it's a nice crisp fall day and we have a pretty good amount of lift available to us, so this is a little bit easier to do. So when you're practicing your landings, you really want to get yourself a little bit closer to the ground before you actually practice the landing itself. So again, I'm just going to settle. And what's going to happen is as you get close to the ground, you're going to start feeling the rotor and ground effect. So really what you want to do here is just practice your hover here. And again, when you get hover, go ahead and get confident at a couple feet over the ground and then go try sinking a little bit lower. Now, because of that rotor and ground effect, you'll notice this really funny thing happens that I pulled my collective back and the helicopter actually just sank and then it stopped sinking. I didn't touch my collective. The reason it did that, of course, is on account of the fact that, again, that rotor enters that low drag zone and it causes you to sort of sit. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to just practice sort of hanging out right here like this. So again, I'm about, let's call it about 1.5 feet off the ground here. Once you're comfortable with that altitude, just sink yourself down a little bit more. And practice to see how low you can get the helicopter before you start to lose control of it. Once you're comfortable with that, whoop, we almost touched. We're ready for the actual landing itself. So what I'm going to do is just practice sitting here just a couple inches off the ground and then practice finally letting those skids sink into the ground. Now, when you do let the skids sink into the ground, one of the things you'll notice is my collective still has quite a bit of action going on with it. That's perfectly fine. And again, I'm pretty light on the skids right now, and that makes it a little bit easier for us. So let's go ahead and now pop back up here. I'm going to take a nice gentle. We're just going to transition. There we go, get out of that lovely effect here. And again, just practice the skill of sitting about 6 inches off the ground. Each time you're doing your hover practice, just get yourself a little bit closer to the ground each time until you're able to reliably hold yourself just a few inches off the ground in a hover. It's all about that few inches off the ground in a hover. Then when you're ready, pull your collective back about 1 millimeter and just settle back onto the ground like that. Now let's put it all together. I'm going to go ahead and speed myself up here. Practice that many times, and you'll start feeling much more comfortable with it. Now, let's say we want to go through the full motion and pick a particular target. I like big fields like this when I practice because it's incredibly authentic. When you're first learning to fly helicopters, this is generally where they're going to take you, assuming they can, because it's just going to be a little bit nicer on the skids and the ground, kind of a thing like that. Well, let's go ahead and now head back over to where we started there. And we'll try to put everything together to try to understand the other parts of landing, including the actual approach itself. Pick up a little bit of speed. This helicopter makes it so easy. This thing is a magic carpet. I love it. There we go. There's our lovely field, and that right there, I'm looking right there, is going to be our target. So there's that little group of bushes there. I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on it. All right, so let's put the approach together. Now, helicopters, when they fly, their traffic altitude or patterns are a little bit lower. They're going to be closer to 500 feet instead of 1,000 feet. That's going to mean a couple things. So the first thing, of course, it's going to mean is the fact that we don't have as much wiggly room if something goes horribly wrong. That's bad. The other advantage is we're going to be out of the way of the other traffic, which is good. That's definitely something we're going to want. All right, let's spin ourselves around. Delightful. There's that little patch right off my 12 o'clock. So we're going to begin our approach. And again, the trick here is having a little bit of speed. About 500 feet per minute is comfortable. Now, just like in an airplane, we're going to be using pitch for speed. We're going to be using collective for up and down. So if I see that I'm starting to get a little fast, I can let the nose come up. And of course, you can bring the collective down as well. So again, that 500 feet per minute is a very comfortable approach speed here. Looks good, looks good, looks good. Again, come down a little bit slower. Give it just a little bit more collective. I'm starting to get too close to the ground. And what we're going to do is transition away from that forward motion to something a little bit slower. And now the trick here is as you're approaching, when you're practicing this, just get used to that little wiggle waggle and continually approach, continually approach, continually approach. Slowly bring the collective back, slowly bring it back. Transition into that lovely little hover that you've been practicing all day. And let the helicopter settle. Go ahead and give that a nice gentle tap. I could have been a little smoother with that, but again, when I'm not in VR, it makes this much more fun. All right, let's go ahead and transition off of this. There we go, nose forward. And just practice that. And what I like to do is I usually pick something that I can use. Again, that little patch of weeds basically works pretty well for this particular effect. So let's say you've done that practice. You've done that high hover, medium hover, low hover. Let's say you've done a couple of those. What should you practice next? Well, your next thing you should be practicing is going to be basically smoothly increasing the speed of the operation while maintaining smoothness. Keep in mind, in the real world, especially with a lightweight helicopter, again, this thing's about 1,300 pounds, if you want to think of how light it is. Especially with a light helicopter, generally we do things very, very slowly. But sometimes building up that speed is also going to help you with that confidence again. So I'm going to go ahead and take my right traffic pattern. We're going to go ahead and take advantage of the asphalt this time with our practice. And what I'm going to do a little bit differently with this particular one is I'm going to do a rolling landing. Sometimes when you have really hot summer days, you basically have to land this like an airplane. And it's a weird landing. It's actually kind of fun because you'll find that it's a little easier to control because you're going to be going so much faster. All right, let's go ahead and take that right turn. Man, my aviation, my fixed wing skill jumps in here and is trying to make me push my right foot forward really hard. Don't really need to. All right, let's transition. Again, we're looking about 500 feet per minute. There we go. Coming down. Again, when you're practicing this skill, the big thing is making sure you get your speed right. So you can see I'm coming out a little hot. So I'm just going to back up some collective. I'm going to pull the nose up a little bit. There we go. That's better. Much better speed. You really don't want to be doing 75 knots when you're going to be doing a rolling landing, essentially. There we go. Start bringing in collective. Watch out for that rotor and ground effect. And what you're going to do is you're going to transition, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, and we're down, just like that. And you can see a little bit of a bumpity bump right there. Again, seeing how fast it goes from forward to back on the ground again. So by practicing the different height hovers, practicing your smooth approaches into something nice and soft, and of course practicing your rolling takeoffs, or your rolling landings, I should say, you'll be able to build up that confidence to fly and land any helicopter. Now, as a bonus, because I like to do things stupid once in a while, let's say you want to do something really, really reckless. Let's go do some really reckless for a second here. Pick up a bit of speed. This is a pure VR helicopter in my mind. Get a little bit more speed, a little bit more speed, a little bit more speed. There we go. Now, let's say we wanted to do something stupid, like we wanted to land in a confined space. Let's see here. What's a nice, awful confined space? Actually, that one right there is a very good confined space. Look at that. How are we going to do things differently? Well, the big difference here is all about our approach speed. What you're going to have to do is reduce your approach speed, which, optimally is about 40 knots. And you're going to have to increase it to, decrease it rather. So it's going very, very slow. And you're going to basically walk steeply onto the target where you can see what you need to see on the ground the entire time. So for example, if I was trying to land in that fellow's backyard right there, all I'm going to do is control and stay slow and keep the best descent that I can to come down relatively sharply. Looks good, looks good. Ooh, ooh. Pull the nose up just a little bit. Again, this requires an awful lot of right foot. I feel sorry if you're on a twist joystick. Looks good, looks good, looks good. Looks good, looks good, looks good. And again, combine everything you've done so far. Right before you get to the ground, here comes rotor and ground effect. And we're just going to settle just like that. Nice. Enjoy.